Hello and welcome to Talk Spooky to Me, the Ghost Story Guys mail show. I'm Brenna Storr.
I'm Paul Bestel.
And this is our chance to hear from you, our listeners. Paul, my friend, I have a very important question for you. This isn't in the script. You're not going to know what I'm about to ask you. I was recently listening to your show, and you were speaking to Ruth Roper Wild.
Yes.
And the topic of Brill Cream came up, which is, of course, a hair product. And you mentioned that in the past, you as a young man employed Brill Cream in your hair.
Yes.
And I must know, are there photos and how can I see them as quickly as possible?
There may be some. I'll have to have a look.
Fantastic. I was driving. I was going to the grocery store and I was listening to it in the car. And I thought, I pulled over so I could write down Brill Cream photos of Paul. I must know.
Yeah, it's when I had highlights and things.
Amazing. I'm imagining you wearing those big Zuba pants too, like full 90s.
Oh, no. It was well before that.
Oh, okay.
This is when I was still at school.
I'll be honest, the timeline of your life baffles me. So when are we talking time-wise?
88, 89.
Oh, okay. Okay, man.
Yeah. Chunky cords, denim shirt.
Nice. And Brill Cream and all that hair.
Yeah.
Oh, folks. If we can find those photos, my life will be complete. I can return to my home planet, satisfied that I have done my work here on Earth. Anyways, Paul, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I've spent an inordinate amount of time this week laughing at a Facebook post in my local area.
I must know. What's it about?
So we had the air ambulance for Sheffield needed to land, and it was trying to land in our park. So one of the local residents went, "Oh, look at this." Took a picture of it and put it on the local Facebook group for Mearsbrook. And somebody went, "Where's this?" And somebody replied, "In the sky." And then this person that had said, "Where is this?" got really arsey, going, "That's not funny. That's not funny. I'm really worried now. What if somebody I know is seriously hurt?" And everybody's like,
for God's sakes.
What? Do you worry every time you see an ambulance? Do you go jump in a taxi and go, "Follow that ambulance"? Honestly, instead of just like laughing for asking a silly question, they then went, "Oh, I'm a victim."
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to double down, because if you look stupid, you got to try and switch it around. So no, I'm not stupid. I'm a victim. You have to feel bad for me.
Yeah. So I've just been sat sometimes this week, and then all of a sudden I've just thought, "In the sky," and just chuckled to myself, because even now it's making me smile thinking about, where else would you see a helicopter? So other than filling my boots with horrific classics, that's what's kept me going most of this week.
All right. There has been nothing quite so wonderful at my end, although we did have a very, very, I thought, very funny thing happen. So I was invited to Orangeville, Ontario, to do their ghost walk. They've actually just started this haunted Orangeville ghost walk there. I think they were in their 4th week when I got there. And I was invited by Tracy, who's one of our listeners and is one of their guides. So drove out to Orangeville. It's about a 2-hour drive. And afterwards, Tracy wanted to tell me some of her ghost stories. But Orangeville's a smallish place, and all the coffee shops were closed by the time the tour was over. But there was a bar open. It was open for, according to the internet, it was open for another hour. So went there, ordered some food, sat down. She starts telling me her stories, and karaoke night starts directly across from us. She's trying to tell me these stories, and now she's having to shout over a very drunk man absolutely taking apart Mac the knife. And it kept going. Because, sometimes karaoke, there's, sneaky karaoke. Because you think karaoke's going to be shit, right? I always thought that was kind of the point of karaoke, But every now and again, some bastard turns up to karaoke and does a really good job and just kind of makes us all feel like shit. I used to, there's a little pub in Grindrod in BC. It's out in the country. And I remember stopping by there with a friend of mine one night. And it just happened to be karaoke. So we sat down, and they were great, the bastards. They were just every one of them to a man, just note perfect. And we thought, well, this is horseshit. This was not the case. At karaoke night in London, in Orangeville, Ontario, it was rough. There was one point actually when Tracy was telling me a story, I quite literally I froze because the pitch of the singer's voice reached such a level that my brain just shut down. it just it turned off. This could be weaponized. But we still, again, we had a great time. I really enjoyed the Haunted Orangeville walking tour. And again, Trace and I had a hoot. And it's a story neither of us will ever forget. Possibly because the trauma has been just seared into our ears. But,
it's a very quick way to make me leave a pub.
Karaoke?
Mm-hmm.
If we'd had anywhere else to go, we would have left. But every single pub there closed at 9. Although it turned out that, and I think it's just because we died and we were in hell, this pub was supposed to close at 9 and it didn't.
Why would you close at 9?
Maybe that's when the frogs start falling from the sky and devouring passersby. I don't know. It was baffling.
How strange. We used to have the 10:30 shutting here on a Sunday, but now we just drink all the time.
Now, and it's gone really well for England. Everything's been great since then.
25 years of 24-hour drinking, and look at us. Gone to hell in a handcart. Storms every week.
Yeah, we were supposed to have a guest tonight on the show, and he was not able to make it because he's in the UK, and the storms are going to stop him from getting home till after midnight. So hopefully we'll have a chat with him next week. And I also had a chance to sit down with our listener Zoe and her boyfriend Mike. We got to hang out. Yeah, we met up at a brewery not far from my place. So it's really cool. I've got to meet 3 listeners recently, because I also got to meet Teresa about a couple weeks back.
Our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day to serve all your supernatural elimination needs.
We're ready to believe you.
All right. And of course, if you want to meet up, if you are in Sheffield or London, Ontario, or nearish to either of those places, and you want to meet either me or Paul for a beer or a coffee, shoot us a message, ghoststoryguides@gmail.com. If we can make it happen, we will. We can't promise anything, of course, but we certainly will try. We love meeting up with our listeners. We love getting to know you guys. It's always a hoot. You guys always have great stories to tell. Great spooky stories. So again, ghoststoryguides@gmail.com. And if we can meet up with you, we will. All right, Paul, who we got up first today?
So first up is Gus, who says, I was listening to the latest episode, and the bit about Spring-Heeled Jack reminded me of this.
And this is a link to an NPR piece from October 1st, 2021, entitled, A Ninja with a Sword Assailed a U.S. Army Special Operations Unit in California. I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. It seems unlikely, but it did indeed happen. A man, quote, wearing full ninja garb, attacked members of a U.S. Army Special Operations Unit in the middle of the night in the California desert, setting off a scramble for safety and resulting in at least 2 injuries, according to police and other records. A man was tased, deservedly so. And I got to say, Paul, my first introduction to the modern world of swords came because of England, because Nick, of course, worked for the police when I met her, and she said it was not uncommon for people, because guns were hard to get in England at the time. I think they're tragically a little easier to get now. But they would use, as she calls them, samurai swords to rob stores and people. And I just thought that was such an odd thing.
I think it just speaks of our ingenuity and resourcefulness.
I would say ram raids more speak to your ingenuity and resourcefulness.
Well, it's one of those things. It's something I've seen and I've witnessed myself in Newcastle. I saw a young juvenile running down the street, slashing cars with a samurai sword randomly at 11:30 at night. One time I was there.
If I was going to have a conversation with anyone who's seen a samurai sword attack, it would be Paul Bestel.
The only other weird weapon type incident I remember, other than the time somebody on PCP tried to kill us all in a pub, was a man who had taken too much Colombian marching powder, who jumped off a pub roof with 2 hatchets, going, "Come on then!" which was very interesting to watch for a bit.
The things you've seen. So with the samurai kid, did anyone, I guess you don't try and stop a guy if he's running with a samurai sword. Did he just kind of run off into the middle distance?
Well, he'd clearly had an argument with his parents, because he came hurtling out of the house going, "I fucking hate you!" And then sort of jumped onto their car, denting the bonnet and the roof, with waving this sword around, and then ran off down the street, slashing cars into the night.
A catcher in the rye for our modern era.
It was a strange night all around, because we'd gone to see Oasis at the Newcastle Arena. On the way there, we went through a part of Newcastle called Biker, and the tram was attacked by apple wielding thugs.
So they were chucking apples at the train?
Yes, broken Britain. My day, it'd be a rock.
That's right. What have we come to? They're just using fruit now, not Molotov cocktails. Kids are getting soft.
Even weapons have to be recyclable these days. It's ridiculous. But that's Newcastle. You never know what's around the next corner there.
And apparently, here in Ridgecrest, California, there was a man with a samurai sword lurking around the corner. So, Gus, I don't know why you know that, but that was amazing. Thank you.
Yes, I like it when later in the article it says, he said to an officer, "Do you know who I am?" And the man said no.
All right, so next up is from Elwin. Elwin says, "Hello, love the podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. I know you're very busy and obviously cannot remember your every episode, but I was wondering if you can think of any specific episode that has a larger focus on orbs. I've been trying to explain them to Mida, and he wants to listen to a podcast on them. Mida is a school principal and found one on the school security camera, only to learn that his friend who works at the oldest school in town has seen hundreds on their cameras that move with intelligence, so likely not dust. I've been going through your episodes, but there is much content, so I thought I'd shoot off this email. All good if you can remember or don't have time to respond. Thanks for such an awesome podcast and all the supportive things you and Paul always say." And Elwin, I don't know is the honest answer. I don't think we've never done a show just on orbs because I don't really think much of orbs, and I think Paul's kind of on the same page there. I know, like, the very first LA episode way back, there was a story with an orb. I think that's because that was one of the first ones that wasn't just clearly dust. I think that's why it always sticks in my head. But I can't think of a specific episode. Although, coincidentally, Paul, I noticed that someone put in that someone commented on one of my posts in the Facebook group. And of course, if you're not already a member of the Ghost Story Guys, finally started a group, you can come join us on Facebook. We'd love to have you. So periodically I'll watch a horror movie and I'll post the poster and talk a little bit about it. And I had talked about The Haunting of the Queen Mary, which I'd seen a little while ago. And someone commented just today with what appears to be a screen grab from that film showing an orb, and they were asking whether we thought it was, like something that caught on film or whether it was intentional. And I mean, I of course assume it's intentional. If it's in a feature film, someone has watched that scene 100 times in the edit. The director knows every square inch of that scene, so I'm assuming it was intentional. But yeah, sort of an interesting coincidence as far as timing goes.
No, we've not really touched on them, really. I mean, we kind of went in a similar direction the first time Brandon joined us because we were talking about Will-o'-the-Wisps and Fey lights. But I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look at it to see what the description is in regards to the visual, because, like you say, the vast majority of orb sightings are dust particles or insects being caught on digital recording equipment. So
I seem to recall someone explained that you started seeing more orbs as soon as cameras got small enough that the flash was moved closer to the lens or to the viewfinder.
Yeah.
So it's mostly just a function of technology. Again, not to say that it's not impossible that there could be intelligent life in what your father's seeing, but I can't think of a specific episode where we've covered it.
Yes. At least they're not rods.
Rods?
Yeah, there was a whole thing about rods about 30 years ago where people were taking pictures, like in the early days of digital cameras, and people said, "Oh, these are intelligent creatures," and I think the majority of them were sort of things like fireflies.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's fair enough, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like this that sometimes makes me wonder about EVP. Maybe there's just the audio version of orbs that we just, I've heard some EVPs that I think are compelling, but there is this part of me that wonders maybe it's not what we think it is, and it's just because they were more common, I think, on analog shit. But I don't know, I could be talking on my ass there.
I mean, EVP, I've heard some that it's either it's real or it's a fake. There's nothing in between. It can't be, it's not a strange noise or wood or the wind or whatever making a sound that sounds like something. You can hear what they're saying clear as day.
Yeah. Funny enough, I someone on the subject of EVPs, I posted this on Instagram. I think I posted it to our stories, so it's probably gone now. But someone posted a video of these people chanting something. And they had five, maybe 4 or 5 different things it could be. And the people, they said, what do you think this is that they're chanting? And what's interesting is it's what they're saying is just vague enough that if you look at each thing, at each line, and listen, you can hear them say it. So you can, if it says like, the tuba is too small, for example, whatever. Like you look at every single thing on the list. If you think about it while you're listening to it, you can make it sound like that in your head. It's sort of this great example of how moldable our perception can be, and really kind of, again, put the lie to a lot of bad EVP. Again, I think there is some genuine, compelling EVP. You've had your own experiences with, the Estes method, for example.
Yeah.
But I do wonder about some of them, because there are times, like I started watching the Afterlife Investigations,
mm-hmm.
the documentary, and I mean, it was interesting. I don't know enough about it to say that it's either accurate or not, but there was, I think, some EVP shown, and I thought, I don't think that says what you say that says. And I mean, sure, if I look at you saying, like, "Hi, mommy," while I'm hearing it, then sure, I get it. But as this thing has shown, your perception is very influenceable. So some of them, I think, I do wonder.
Next is from Hillary. Hi, Paul and Brennan. I'm so close to being caught up. I've just finished Spirits of the Earth. I expect my emails will spread out now that I'm not listening to 5 or 8 episodes a week. I was listening to the end of this episode tonight, and I'm reading Fahrenheit 451 right now. And it occurs to me that maybe those people who could get along with all this world's noise and consumption and the stuff are readers. As I said in the comments to Luke's Facebook post about time, the reason books were burned started with time. That time spent reading or thinking or having philosophical debate was time better spent doing something else. And if you're focused on consuming and the noise of life, maybe you're more firmly grounded in this world. And if you long for space and quiet away from that, you're more closely connected to the other world. I don't know, but thank you for reading.
I don't know about connection to the other world, but I mean, you can sure say that there is a connection between books, reading, thinking, and the inability to impose order on people. I mean, always be suspicious of people who want to start burning books. I was actually just listening to a podcast, Paul, and they were saying that they were talking about the insane irony of places banning Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, show me somebody who's never read that book.
Right? What are your thoughts?
I think reading is one of those things that some people just don't seem to grasp the power it has over people, and just presume that if you're reading that you're not actually doing anything, which I've never understood. That there seems to be this correlation between, oh, you're reading a book, so you're clearly not busy then, I'm just going to talk to you. Well, no, I'm reading something. Can you not see I am holding something to read? Therefore, that means I want to read this, not have a conversation. So then you have to get the book and hit them with it until they stop talking.
Is that a thing people do? They're like, oh, you're clearly not busy because you're reading?
Oh, yeah.
Really? What? Of course I'm busy. I'm focused on something. Why would I not be? I am baffled by that. I mean,
it's like when you've got your earphones in and people start talking to you. Like, I'm sorry, I'm listening to something.
I mean, I've definitely seen some greasy dudes do that. I've seen, like, I remember I was on the train in Montreal earlier this year, and this girl had her headphones in and she was reading. And this guy clearly had something written on a card that he got from some dipshit pickup artist and just, like, slid it into her field of vision over top of what she was reading. And I think, if for no other reason than that, some people should be gifted the mutant power of laser vision, because she should have just burned through his skull with her turbo eyes.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be careful as well, because there are those extreme readers as well, that if you ever are on social media and somebody will say, oh, what's your favourite film or favourite TV series, somebody will always comment, I don't watch things like that, I read books. Two sides of the same coin.
That's a subset of the dipshit who says, I only read nonfiction because I only concern myself with things that are real. Like, no, get out of here. Out of the pool. Go home.
Well, print is dead.
That's only going to make sense once you hear our interview on the TV Trivia Podcast out in December. So that's a call forward.
I can see the future.
Again, if anyone can, I believe it will be Paul Damien Bestel.
Well, why my middle name is what it is.
Well, that's one reason. All right, so next up is Kimberly. Kimberly says, I am beyond excited that you have a gin episode in the works. I lived in the Middle East for 7 years and might have to get around to sending you some stories, one of them being my own experience. I continue to do a lot of research on them and am, like you and the good folk, Brennan, a fearful/respectful believer in their existence. I couldn't pretend to have any sort of answer to the foot question, incredible story by the way, but I do have a thought. They are famous for their shape-shifting abilities. If one was in a human form, could that allow a maiming but still indestructible form? Or at least one that can't be burned? I guess that still leaves a lot of weird loopholes, but it is a weird, unknowable topic. And yeah, Kimberly, that was kind of my read too. I just thought, as we were sort of speculating towards the end of that episode, maybe they can be hurt by concussive forces, but they can't be burned. I mean, like you said, it's fundamentally unknowable. We can't really know, unless one of them wants to tell us. Please don't. Or if you do, find me in the daytime, like at the gym or at the bar or something. Don't come to the bedroom at 3 a.m. Please don't be that guy or that Jen. Please don't.
Yeah, because we had a hair-raising moment in the early hours earlier this week.
Oh, really?
About 1 a.m. and we were just closing down for the night, getting ready, only for Julie to scream at the top of her lungs.
Oh God!
Because she'd had a dream. And it was it wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. And she screamed so loud she woke herself up.
Okay, well that works.
Yes, we were all a little perturbed for a moment. We basically just stood there, me and the dog, staring at the door, wondering what may come through. But thankfully it was just Julie to tell us she'd had a bad dream.
Did I tell you about the weird dream I had? And I kind of woke up not screaming, but I woke up gasping?
No.
So this was about a week ago. I had a dream, and in the dream I was talking to this couple I used to know in Revelstoke. They're divorced now, but in the dream they're still together, and it was actually quite a nice dream. We were planning to take a trip together. We were looking at all this stuff. We were just spending a lot of time around each other, and I was really quite happy. But then there was a cat. It was a gray or black cat in the dream, and the fellow, the husband of the couple, he started being not very nice to this cat. He was like handling it quite roughly. And at one point he was squeezing it. And I finally said to him, I said, hey man, don't do that.
Don't squeeze cats.
Don't squeeze cats. And the cat looked at me and it said, you need to get the fuck out of here. Right?
Is that because that cat was going to fuck him up?
Well, I hope so.
I don't want you to see me at my worst. Get out, brother. Brilliant. Potty mouth cats. Well, to be fair, if cats could talk, I would expect they would talk like that all the time, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Our next message is from Sharif. Hi, Brennan and Paul. On episode 137, Those Who Watch You Sleep, back in May 2022, Paul mentioned a Canadian show whose name he couldn't remember, one involving sending logs down rivers. The show was called Beachcombers. Ah, of course. I remember watching it in the 1980s in Kuwait. Honestly, I found it rather boring. As a sci-fi and fantasy-obsessed teenager growing up in a country with limited access to either, Beachcombers was the last show I wanted to watch. Bombastic American shows about vigilantes and blowing up anything that comes near you? Yes. Slow blue-collar drama in the boonies of Canada? No. Please, for the love of God, no. Okay, back to listening to every frigging piece of content in the Ghost Story Guys back catalogue, possibly the third time. Or is it a fourth? Cheers, Sharif.
Oh man, Sharif, that is a blast from the past. I never watched Beachcombers because Canadians don't watch Canadian television, but I remember the name from a very particular point in my youth.
Yes, it was on over here, very oddly. We had some very strange Canadian. We had that and the kids of Degrassi Street or whatever it's called.
Degrassi High.
Degrassi, I don't bloody know.
Yeah, again, no one in Canada watched that either. We're so bad for not consuming our own art. It is terrible. Like Nikki, I don't know if Due South was explicitly a Canadian show, but obviously it was set in Canada. And Nikki, just when I first met her, she just adored that show. And I was aware of it, but I had never even so much as seen a full episode.
Yeah, no, my mum loves it too.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was on the BBC here.
I think I remember Nick saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you had any more great television exports around the world?
Canada? I mean, we've had, apparently Republic of Doyle is popular in some places. I think it's filmed in Nova Scotia. There was a one with Adam Beach, the plane one. I don't remember what that was called. I know that did well in some places. But again, Da Vinci's Inquest was apparently popular. Never watched it, but apparently very popular. Nicholas Campbell did very well for himself. This has been...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hey, I barely know, because again, no one here watches them.
course. You've got Murdoch Mysteries.
We do?
That's massive, isn't it? I think he's had like 19 seasons of the show.
Is that a Canadian show?
I don't think so. It's set in Canada. You'd hope.
I'll be damned. Yeah, it takes place in Toronto. I had no idea. For some reason, I thought that was a UK show.
It's got a lot of UK actors in it.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I'll be damned. Genuinely had no idea Murdoch Mysteries was Canadian. Like I said,
it's amazing.
We don't watch our own programming. If you want to succeed in Canada, you have to leave Canada, and because we won't appreciate you until someone else sells you to us. That's just the way it is. William Shatner, James Cameron, Neil Young, Jim Carrey. You live here, we don't give a shit. You move somewhere else, someone else validates you for us. They vet you for us. Oh yeah, well, you're in. You're a big deal now.
Greg Rosetsky.
Now, did I tell you that?
What?
That is how Nick refers to Wayne Gretzky.
Greg Rosetsky.
That's exactly what she says.
Even I know the difference between an ice hockey player and one of England's greatest tennis players.
Oh, so he was a tennis player.
Greg, yeah, he was. He was our first man that got to a slam in decades in the 90s. He got to the US Open final. Greg.
See, I thought she just pulled the name out of her ass, because whenever she refers to Wayne Gretzky, she always calls him Greg Rosetsky. She acts like because I'll say, oh, yeah, he's famous. And she goes, it's Greg Rosetsky. I don't know who he is. And so, I thought that was just a made-up name, but that's a real person.
Yeah, he was a Canadian who switched allegiance and became British for tennis.
Oh, wow. So this joke has multiple levels. All this time I thought she was just regular fucking with me, but she's like quantum fucking with me. 4D chess fucking with me.
Yeah, like Lennox Lewis.
What?
Lennox Lewis boxed for Canada at the Olympics.
Okay, again, like I said, we don't know. We don't. Do you succeed in Canada? Not in Canada, you don't. Not until you leave.
And then he turned professional and said, right, I'm British again, because he grew up in London. I think he emigrated when he was 6 to Canada. So at least he was born here.
When I think Lennox Lewis, I think of an English accent. Like I think of a London accent. So I just assumed he was British.
Yeah. No, he boxed 88 Olympics for Canada, I think.
Son of a bitch. I had no idea. Folks, again, this is the curse of the Canadian entertainer, the Canadian athlete. If you are here, again, we do not give a shit unless maybe you die. I think like there's a handful of exceptions. Maybe Bruce Cockburn,
Geddy Lee.
Yeah, exactly. But even them, I think it's more they were validated by people outside of Canada, and then we kind of went, oh, we've been told they're cool now, so it's okay. This is why I hold out hope for myself. I just got to wait for enough people outside of Canada to say, hey, that guy's cool, and then I will be elevated to maybe not Paul Gross status. That takes a lot of work, but I'll maybe like slightly above dishwasher.
Perhaps you need to do a prog rock album with 3 tracks on it that lasts an hour.
I don't think anyone wants to hear that from me specifically.
Oh, that's all right. I thought you were dissing the kings of Rush.
Oh no, I would be run out of the country if I dissed Rush. All right, next up is from Nikki. Nikki says, hello, Paul and Uncle Brennan. Yes, I'm bringing that up because I feel like it will be like the Clamato. Never leave. I also enjoy knowing that it makes every single person feel like they stepped on something squishy.
To be fair, I'd rather tread in something squishy than drink Clamato, but carry on.
Nikki goes on to say, I saw Dana and Greg Newkirk live at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado recently. Absolutely loved it. So glad to see their names coming up more and more in the paranormal field. I also did something I've been waiting to do for a long time and never had. Purchased a recommended book. In your episode Terror in the Skies, you told the story of an airport that wasn't there. It was from the book Ghosts of the Air by Martin Caidin. I loved that story and thought of my best friend who was a pilot for work and leisure. What can be better than ghosts in planes? As it turns out, a lot can. Brennan, you weren't kidding when you said there is a lot of airplane talk. I can't seem to read more than one chapter before falling asleep. It's drier than a popcorn fart in Death Valley. My friend will love it. Also curious if you'd read any of his other 50 books. Are they too like peeling off your eyelids and stepping in front of a fan? Thank you so much for bringing all the weird shit to the light and making it not so dark. And Nikki, thank you very much. In fairness to Martin Caidin, I mean, if you're publishing that many books, you're obviously doing something, right? People are responding to them. It goes to the air is very dry. There are some really interesting stories in it, and at some point I'm probably going to maybe pull some more stories out for a second Terror in the Skies episode. But yeah, it's just dry. I've never read anything else Caden has done. Have you, Paul?
No, I haven't. I only was aware of that book because I'd heard of it and then obviously heard the interview he did with Art Bell 30 odd years ago.
Right. Yeah. So again, yeah, we don't. I don't know, Nikki. Sometimes that's going to happen, right? Like that's one of the downsides to, well, I guess, to researching any topic, is sometimes some of the people who are going to write about it, and sometimes the people who've got really good stuff are going to be, it's going to be a little dry. Like I won't say who, but there's one author I've read one of his books, and it's bad. It's super bad. There's some really interesting stuff in there, but holy shit, getting through it was painful. Yeah. Anyways, I won't say any more than that, but that just happens sometimes, right? Like,
is it Stephen King?
All right, and down to our last email.
Catherine writes, I recently moved into my friend's house as a tenant. Years ago, they let me know that I wasn't imagining two ghosts in the house. One is a man who is just a background figure, but you can feel his presence. And the other is a shadow cat. I had noticed both over the years, so it was nice to know. I've noticed two things since my move-in. First, the cat that I noticed out of the corner of my eye streaking across the living room at times has started making himself at home in my bedroom. I've seen him curl up in a corner and walk into a wall before disappearing. I mentioned this to my best friend housemate, and she said she thinks the cat was an outdoors cat, and my room started life as an enclosed porch, so it makes sense that he would make himself comfortable there. With the person I've just thought of as Sir, I've never had anything beyond a watchful presence feeling. Well, 2 days after I arrived, I was lying in bed. My room has a door that leads directly to the outside, and I heard a rapping on the glass of that door. I sat up straight and shone a light outside. Nothing there. Half an hour later, 3 knocks on the glass happened again. I mentioned this to my same friend, and she said that's another thing that's happened before. Years ago, a friend needed a place to crash for a couple of weeks, and she heard knocking on that very same door. It never happens with just an overnight guest, but when it's obvious that someone will be there for a while. He'll announce himself by knocking on the glass of the door, so they know he's keeping an eye on them. She says it's most likely the father of a family who lived here decades ago, and he's protective.
So thank you, Catherine. That's really nice. And I wanted to save that one for last because it was just one of those pleasant interactions with the paranormal that we don't get nearly enough of on this show.
It's interesting how you can sometimes see a paranormal entity change its behaviour. I like those kinds of stories. Is it because they are becoming more comfortable with the person that's seeing them more? Or is it the environment that is enabling that particular person to see more? Or what causes that kind of thing? I find those kind of encounters very fascinating because it's the opposite of a standard haunting where it's very intermittent and you're not really sure when it happens or anything. Whereas this seems to be, I'm not sure, brave is probably not the right word, more visible for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, the thing I really like about it, man, is it so many of the stories we hear about ghosts, they revolve around this idea of like stasis, of being repeating. This person is trapped here. This person is, they cannot escape here. In fact, the guest we're going to have on next Talk Spooky, which I won't give away who it is yet, but I was watching one of their videos. They're quite well known for the videos they make. And one of the videos talks about this funeral home where the spirit of the owner is said to be trapped. And they actually talk about like sealing it up so he can't get out. And I thought, what a fucked up thing is that? I might have misunderstood. I have to rewatch it. But so many of these stories just revolve around this idea of, again, of just like being stuck in one place and repeating, or like these sort of automatons. They're either human beings who are stuck in one place, or they're just these echoes of people who used to be that just repeat and repeat and repeat. And I really love the idea of something that evolves and thinks and is not stuck necessarily, but chooses to stay for reasons all its own. I find that really reassuring in a way that maybe some of these traditional paranormal stories are not.
Yeah, or maybe there's a troll hiding in the skirting board and the cat's protecting them.
That could be in too. I mean, we can't rule out the troll thesis. I mean, based on the film Troll Hunter, that famous documentary, I feel like they would be much larger.
Well, you never know. I've never seen a large troll in the real world. I've only seen trolls smaller than myself so far. That's Norway for you.
I have seen exactly 0 trolls other than the ones on the end of my pen when I was a young child. And let me tell you, if the trolls are going to rise up, the ones who got shafted on the end of my pencil are going to be the ones who come for me first. So I'm hoping that they stay where they are.
Well, of course, there is a growing theory in European cryptozoology that perhaps trolls aren't trolls, they're hairy hominids.
Oh, really?
Scandinavian Bigfoot.
Oh, interesting.
So I know there's, I think there's an expedition planned in the next couple of years.
Really?
To do some investigating and see if there's more to the troll mythos than meets the eye.
Oh, that's very cool. Again, this is another example of things evolving, and I love that. This idea that, no, we have new ideas about how this works, and we're going to explore that. That's the stuff that gives me life, man. Sort of making the future by truly learning more about the past. I find that really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of comprehension, because obviously one of the most famous Scandinavian stories is the legend of Beowulf, and it's quite clear what Grendel and Grendel's mum are. They're giant, hairy, man-like beasts.
Interesting. So you think Grendel could be some kind of ancient cryptid?
I don't know. I just find it odd because it's Scandinavia. They don't really have apes in Scandinavia, especially in those times.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Beowulf's, 1,500 years old? Something
like that. I'm going to have to take your word for that. I'm aware it is old. I do not know how old.
I think it's a fabulous story, regardless. And one of those hero stories where it doesn't have a happy ending.
Yeah, it really doesn't. That's a good point.
Like Jason and the Golden Fleece, which everybody only knows the cinematic version of that story, not the horrific ending.
Remind me?
And Jason finds himself all alone and cast out from society, and is killed by the decaying wreck of the Argo as it falls on him on the beach as he sits there crying on his own.
I did not know that's how that ended.
Mm-hmm.
Crushed by the weight of the past.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not sure. It is. I mean, it's one of those. Not many people know the full story of. They know the Golden Fleece bit, but they don't know everything else about it.
Maybe that's the key to a good legend is not knowing how it ends. There's that line. It might even just be from a Drive-By Trucker song. That's where I heard it, but I believe it comes from somewhere else. Is the difference between a happy ending and a sad ending is knowing when to roll the credits. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Talk Spooky to Me. Thank you so much for your stories, for your emails, your comments. Please keep them coming in. ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Facebook. We're Ghost Story Guys. We also have a group. The Ghost Story Guys finally made a group. We're on Instagram as The Ghost Story Guys. And we do have a musical guest, but before we get there, Paul, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me, alongside my work on the marvellous Ghost Story Guys, by looking for Mysteries and Monsters across social media platforms or podcast sites and at mysteriesandmonsters.com.
Fabulous. I'm on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd as Largely the Truth. You can find my other show, Weird Together, where Dr. Joseph Camo, that's right, Joseph, Doctor, I said it, where we watch independent horror films and talk about them through a sociological lens. It is both more and less nerdy than it sounds, and you can check that out by searching for Weird Together on podcast platforms everywhere, or by checking the show notes for this episode. And our musical guest on this episode is one of our in-house artists. It is, of course, our composer, Rainy Days for Ghosts. Rainy Days for Ghosts is a project of Jerry Smith. Jerry's a film journalist and musician based out of Central California. And since we just missed Halloween for this episode, we're going to play a track from his new EP, Haddonfield. That is, of course, a tribute to the Halloween series, Jerry's favorite series, of which I believe Part 4 is his favorite film. As I mentioned, it's an EP. There are 3 tracks, and the one we're going to be playing tonight is The Shape. And that is the second track from the EP. You can find that on streaming platforms everywhere or at rainydaysforghosts.bandcamp.com. And there is going to be something very cool coming from Jerry soon. As you all know, Jerry has been composing music for us for a little while now, Paul. I actually can't even remember how long it's been. I want to say about a year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds right. I don't know. 2020 to 2022 all blurs into one, so it could be a week.
It's hard to know. But either way, Jerry has been composing brand new cues for every episode or for every main episode at least. And we are going to be launching, it'll be free for patrons and you'll be able to stream it on platforms everywhere. We're going to be launching the Ghost Story Guys soundtrack season by season. So Jerry's going to be compiling those into digital releases. And again, you'll be able to stream them on Spotify, Apple Music, all those places. That's in the pipeline right now. We'll announce that when it happens a little further down the line. But for now, we just want to say thank you for joining us, and we will leave you with Rainy Days for Ghosts and The Shape.